So I wasn't even going to review this. I really had no interest in seeing it and figured I didn't have anything to add to the conversation. But after a long day of shooting on a Friday night, the last thing I wanted to do was drive home in LA traffic. And since the Grove was right next door to the studio I was shooting at, I folded and decided to give it a chance. So I sat down, watched it, and yeah, it's exactly the movie I thought it was going to be. It's painfully mediocre. It's a huge cash grab. There's talent on board that are working their hardest to give the best possible experience that they can, but the production itself and the script is so clearly holding back that talent that it's hard to get invested in what you're watching. I felt like if I were to do a video covering this, I would more or less be parroting what everybody else is already saying, and there wouldn't really be a new perspective that I could add to this movie. So I went about my life, worked on other projects, and then I started to notice that coverage about this movie just wasn't going away. It bombed pretty hard at the box office. There was an awful Variety article that was written basically as a way to blame Rachel Zegler for the failure of this movie, which we'll talk about in a second. And the controversies that this movie had kept piling and piling until it became one of the most talked about movies I've encountered in quite some time. Now I suddenly found myself with a million things I wanted to talk about because it's clear that this is one of the most chaotic releases I've seen for a movie in quite some time. So I will do my best to structure this video in a way where I can cover everything I want to cover, all the controversies and drama, while still offering a fair review of this film. Because looking at the movie as a whole, it's just not worth any of the attention or backlash it's getting. This should be a nothing movie that came and went from existence because in regards to the movie itself, there's nothing really to talk about here. Disney has been on this live-action remake train since 2010. Once you see one of these movies, you've seen them all. There's no reason to continue making them or seeing them. They add no value to the cultural zeitgeist or the original source material. Truthfully, I haven't even seen all the Disney remakes yet, but the only one I actually even liked was The Jungle Book. It told a familiar story, but in a visually unique way, and was really exciting when it came out. There was actual care and effort given to this movie because The Jungle Book itself is already a very well-known story. You can do so much with it, and Jon Favreau and his team was really able to tap into that potential very effectively. But other than that, I've been either lukewarm to these movies or just outright hated them. The Little Mermaid was fine, Cruella was cool, I guess. Aladdin was not good, but could have been much worse. Dumbo is bad. The Lion King, hate it. Maleficent, hate it. Beauty and the Beast, hate it. Mufasa, hate it. Alice in Wonderland, hate it. Pinocchio, hate it. So I guess all of that to say, I had really low expectations going into this. How does it rank up amongst the rest? I'd rank it about the same place I'd rank Aladdin, where it's not good, but I didn't hate myself watching it, I guess. Snow White is interesting because it was the first full-length American animated film ever made, and the first in a long line of Disney animated films. It's extremely important to the medium and really shaped the industry for years to come. It remains one of the highest grossing films of all time adjusted for inflation, and the iconography within the film is still recognized and referenced to this day. So I guess this begs the question, is there anything that a live-action remake can add to this material that can enhance the story in any way? No, but they did it anyways, because fuck yeah, money!
There is nothing quite as beautiful as money. There is nothing quite as beautiful as cash.
This time around, they got Mark Webb to direct this one. His previous credits include 500 Days of Summer, which I think is wonderful, and Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which is not so wonderful. But he also did some episodes of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and that's a very funny show, so maybe he can cook here. Rachel Zegler very famously plays Snow White, and Gal Gadot also very famously plays the Evil Queen. I feel like I don't even really need to get into the story, but fuck it, I will. Snow White is a princess living in a magical kingdom. She is raised by a king and queen and learns the importance of kindness and helping others. Unfortunately, her mother passes away, which means her father must now find a new suitor to be his wife and new queen. A new woman comes to town who appears somewhat friendly, but quickly reveals herself to be a vindictive and jealous woman hungry for power. The king mysteriously disappears, which means the queen is now in power. She consults a magic mirror, asking who is the fairest of them all, and is horrified when the mirror tells her it's Snow White. The queen sends a huntsman to kill Snow White, who in turn wardens her of the queen's jealousy and sends her away to hide in the woods. She runs off and finds a cottage where a group of 7 dwarves live. She now has to find a way to protect herself from the queen while also finding out the truth about her father and save her kingdom from certain doom. So I guess we should talk first about why there's so much drama with this movie. These were issues that arose years before the movie even came out, so we've definitely been hearing about this for a while. We first heard that Peter Dinklage was upset over the depiction of dwarves in this film. He argued that little people should not be simply subjected to roles that depict them as dwarves, but rather given more dignified roles in films. While I can understand this notion, the thing is, Peter Dinklage, in regards to fame, is the exception when it comes to actors who are little people. He's lucky enough to have built a name for himself over the years, to where he can now regularly appear in roles outside of fantasy films and shows depicting dwarves or elves of some kind. But the thing is, unless the script calls for a short person in it, how else are more people going to obtain opportunities like this in the industry? Shouldn't a film like this provide more little people an opportunity to break out into the industry? These comments are well-intentioned, I suppose, but I think this ultimately hurts the community more than it helps them. What's funny is that seemingly in response to the quote-unquote controversy, it was reported that the film instead chose to depict 7 magical bandits that were a very diverse group of people. This, I guess, to offset some of the concerns with depicting the dwarves. People were not happy about this revelation, and accusations of it being woke were brought into the forefront. After then, the quote-unquote supposed backlash to the announcement, it was then announced once again that no, the dwarves are actually in this movie, but they're all going to be CG to accurately reflect the original cartoon. Then we got this horrific promotional image, and well, the rest is history. I guess I'm not really sure what the true timeline of events was as it relates to the production of this movie. Were the dwarves always supposed to be in it? Were the bandits ever going to replace them? These are things that have not been confirmed, but if you watch the film, you'll find that the bandits and dwarves are actually all in the movie. The bandits are basically a group of revolutionaries who team up with the prince to combat the queen's tyrannical rule. It's possible that once Snow White entered the woods, this was the group she was originally supposed to meet up with, and they would have an adventure together. This is especially suspicious since there are 7 of them, so what's going on here? If the bandits were originally supposed to fill the roles of the dwarves, then it was changed halfway through production. All I'll say is that's a really questionable move on Disney's end. Like, I'm not one of those guys like Critical Drinker or The Quartering who's going to whine and complain about diversity. You guys know I despise those types of creators and would never want to be that on my channel. I guess I just find myself asking, why? I don't see the point in making this change, and I feel like Disney would have had to know that it would piss off both fans of the original and the dreaded anti-woke crowd, so why would they do that? I guess it wouldn't upset me at all. I would just be like, huh? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Again, maybe this was always the intention that there was going to be bandits and dwarves in this movie. I don't know. I guess I find myself more in a speculative place than anything else. The bandits are all fine, but I don't really remember any of them. I couldn't tell you any of their names, even though I think there's a scene where they're all formally introduced. Take that as you will. I'm sorry I don't have better commentary on this. I just don't know what the story was here or what was going on. I think even if the bandits did replace the dwarves, I wouldn't be upset because of diversity or whatever, just more because, like, the dwarves are cool and their presence would be missed from the film. Maybe if we spent more time with the bandits, we would grow to like them, but in this particular film, they really don't even leave that much of an impact. Then there's the controversy with Rachel Zegler, and this is a lot to get through, so let's just try to break it all down. I guess first things first is the controversy with the casting of Rachel herself. She's a Latino woman, and people were upset because the character is supposed to be white as snow. I genuinely do not care if she was cast. I'm happy she's in it. She's the best part of this movie. I love her, and I will simply not stand for Nazis trying to discredit her appearance in this film. I know people are not a fan of the colorblind casting, particularly as it pertains to Disney princesses, but I must once again reiterate, who fucking cares? Like, I remember when The Little Mermaid came out and people were trying to apply science to their arguments and say, well, the mermaid is always underwater, so her skin should be more white. You dumb racist fuck. This is a fucking mermaid we're talking about. There is no science behind it. They do not exist. You just hate people of color and do not want to see them cast in movies. Your argument has no legitimate basis to me, and you should be fucking embarrassed at the mere notion of trying to apply science to a kid's movie about fucking mermaids! You people are Nazis. That's what's going on. If you ever complained about diversity in a movie and said that Hollywood is woke or whatever, you are not some enlightened centrist trying to engage in the marketplace of ideas or whatever the fuck. You're just a Nazi. Straight up. If Alien came out today, you would say that Ripley is woke. And I know that's like the one example that everybody uses, but mark my words, I swear this would be the reaction if that movie came out today. You people act all high and mighty and pretend that no, it's not actually that we hate diversity in media, it's just that it can't be the priority, that's all. But literally every single time a smidgen of diversity is presented to you bigoted assholes, you always have a problem with it and say that it's woke. There's never a period where you're okay with it. So just come out and say what you are. A Nazi, a fascist. You hate anyone who is not a white man, and I'm not gonna fall for your grandstanding bullshit anymore. You people are actively ruining culture and media, and I genuinely hate anyone who is engaging in this line of thinking. I mean it when I say I am the number one hater of the quartering and critical drinker. I will someday make a separate video on this because I think there's a lot to be said here, but if these types of channels have no haters, it's because I'm fucking dead. Anyways, people were also upset because Rachel Zegler trashed the original movie in interviews leading up to this film.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Now, a lot of her comments I personally don't agree with. I find them to be a short-sighted way of looking at the original film. Like, yeah, I guess technically the prince does kind of stalk Snow White, but I think one of the things you realize about the original Snow White is that it's not operating in a place of reality, it's operating in a place of emotion. This is something Doug Walker also talks about, but the original Snow White relies off emotional storytelling, and that's why that movie works. Yeah, maybe it's weird that the prince just suddenly appears when it's convenient in the story, and what? He just goes down there and kisses her without her consent? That's not okay. And what, then they just get together at the end and live happily ever after? They go to a cloud in the sky. Where are they going? What's the castle they're going to? Like, if you want to ask these questions, I guess you can, but the film doesn't really operate in a world of reality. Like, yeah, we only have one scene with the prince in this film, but you know that Snow White is thinking of him, and you're hoping that they get together at the end. And yeah, I guess it's weird that he just finds her and kisses her at the end, but you know what? That's what we want to see. We know that it's a true love's kiss is the only way to bring Snow White back, and our emotions automatically want to see this because we're sad that she's dead at the end of the film. So when it happens, it feels all the more satisfying. The thing is, though, I'm not mad that Rachel Zegler would probably disagree with me on this topic. I'll be honest, at first I thought it was dumb, but the longer I thought about it and the more intense the vitriol towards her got, the less I cared. Like, yeah, she disagrees with me on a particular movie, so what? And yeah, she said a dumb thing in an interview, so what? She's young, the fame she's received in such a short amount of time is insane. Like, really thinking on it and looking back on everything, none of what she says matters. It's an opinion that I don't agree with, but that's okay. I think what pisses me off is, again, the amount of vitriol directed towards her as a result of these comments. These chuds are pretending to care so much about the original Snow White, when again, they just hate Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about her comments about the original, they're not active fans of Disney, they just hate people of color. That's it. One controversy I do want to offer a more critical light to is this Variety article that came out about Rachel Zegler. Okay, so basically the film bombed at the box office and it only made $42 million on its opening weekend, which is not good. The film cost over $250 million to make, and it's unexpected that the film will make much of a profit. So whenever a big tentpole movie like this underperforms, there's always a question of why. What happened? Why did this movie not do well? I'd argue that people weren't interested in another Disney remake, and the reviews for this movie weren't particularly great, so people didn't really see a reason to go out and support it. Maybe some of the drama was just a little much for people, so okay, next time don't spend $250 million on a Disney remake, you idiots. That's the takeaway here, right? Well, this article actually argues it's all Rachel Zegler's fault. It recounts a story where after she promoted a trailer for her film and it did well on YouTube, she went to thank her fans for it. Then underneath the post, she said, "And always remember, free Palestine." The article then goes on to state that this caused the production so much disarray that Mark Platt himself, the producer of this movie, personally flew across the country to have a stern talking to with Rachel to get her to take down the tweet. One Disney insider claimed that she wasn't thinking of Gal Gadot's feelings, and how dare she for that. Despite this, though, she stood her ground and the tweet stays up to this day. She also badmouthed Donald Trump and his supporters after he won the 2024 election, which, hello, base department? I don't see a problem with this. She apologized for the post, and the world moved on. The thing is, though, this article paints all these events in a negative light. Like, how dare Rachel Zegler say, fuck Donald Trump? When, like, no, I'll say that too. Fuck Donald Trump. This article was written by Variety's Tatiana Siegel, and it was quickly discovered that she has a history of producing tabloid-like material for the publication. She wrote negatively about Melissa Barrera when she was unceremoniously fired from Screen 7 for being anti-Zionist. She spread rumors that Nia DaCosta left the Marvels midway through post-production, which was not true. Point being, not a good person, and her work brings more people down than it does inform. It's gross, and I'll say it certainly makes me look at Variety differently if this is the type of content they allow in their publication. Last controversy then is regarding Gal Gadot. So, a lot of the reviewers on YouTube who are either uneducated or trying not to piss anybody off are saying that the only controversy with Gal Gadot is that she is the worst actress ever. Like, yeah, that's kind of true, but that doesn't even really scratch the surface of the issue. The true nature of the issue is that she is a former IDF soldier and a loud and proud Zionist. There's not really a ton to say here. I've already gone in depth about my thoughts on the Israel-Palestine conflict multiple times on this channel. It bears repeating, though, that Israel is committing genocide, operating an apartheid state, doing it with US tax dollars, and weaponizing anti-Semitism to justify it all. It's not okay, it needs to end, and anyone continuing to defend the occupation to this day should not be taken seriously. I acknowledge the existence of anti-Semitism. I, of course, condemn it, and I understand that as a person who is not Jewish, I am not entirely qualified to speak on how Israel does or does not represent Judaism. Yes, Zionism became more relevant than ever following the Holocaust, but Zionist violence had been taking place in historic Palestine since the late 1800s. I don't care what religion is doing it, and how they're justifying it. Ethnic cleansing is not okay and should not be tolerated. I will never, ever, ever support it, and I find it absolutely disgusting to see how rabid folks get while defending Israel. Gal Gadot is also just not a great actress in my opinion, especially in this movie. She's just absolutely awful. So yeah, I don't really know what future she has. This has been a PR nightmare for her, and while I urge you not to harass her or get involved in Gadot's personal business in any way, I will say with my full chest, free Palestine. Okay, so that's a breakdown of all the controversies of this film. I know that was a lot to get through, but I do want to talk about it because, yeah, it's important and I think adds a lot of context to why this movie is so widely talked about right now. The thing is, though, after all is said and done, there's not really much to freak out about over this movie. The movie itself is exactly like all the other Disney live-action remakes. It's boring, it's stale, it's very clearly a cash grab. I get the impression that it's trying to be two different movies at once. You get the new Snow White movie that they're making with new songs and storylines, to beef it up and make it more accessible to a modern audience. Then there's the original movie that this movie would like to replicate as to not piss off fans of the original too much. The thing is, though, it fails at both of these things. The new material offered here is not interesting or well thought out in any way, and the elements that made the original so great are not here either. So what you ultimately get is a corporate mandated movie that feels soulless and empty. I like the story of Snow White, it's a cool story, but they're just going through the motions without giving you much an opportunity to really feel anything. When Snow White gets kissed at the end, which brings her back to life, it's supposed to be the grand finale, the emotional highlight that sticks with you after you leave the theater. Here, it's just a scene they gotta do so they can get to the real finale that they want to show you, which is just a boring confrontation with the evil queen and Snow White in which she kind of just is randomly defeated. Okay? I don't get the impression that this movie hates the original or anything, more that it just doesn't understand it. We don't want to see the backstory or explanation to why the queen is bad and see a big revolt against her.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry.
I don't really see a way in which you can make a lot of these storylines interesting because the truth is they're just not. So I come back to my original question once again. Why? What's the purpose of telling the story? If you can't answer that, then why the hell should I be answering that for you? Why should I give you my time of day to a movie that doesn't even give a shit enough to justify itself? The production elements are mostly all strong, but not too much to complain about there. The CG dwarves are really creepy, and they go heavy into the uncanny valley. But the hi-ho sequence in the mines was one of my favorites in the whole movie, so I guess there's something there. Production design is nice. Cinematography could have been a little more dynamic, but it's not awful, I guess. The music and the new songs sound fine, but again, nothing memorable. That's Justin Paul and Benji Pasek doing the songs here. They did Dear Evan Hansen, The Greatest Showman, and helped on La La Land. They're talented guys and they can make some catchy tunes, but I don't really like any of the new songs. Honestly, I like the new renditions of the original songs more. Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work were really fun scenes in this movie, and I'm curious if they could have done more with any of the other songs from the original. I don't know, maybe I'll come around to some of these songs because they're not bad, just not particularly memorable. Rachel Zegler is absolutely fabulous in this movie. You know, she's just the type of person that just seems really cool. Like, you can just sit down and have a conversation with her. She would ask you personal questions and you could, like, easily connect with her, you know? I don't know. I just imagine that we would go to dinner together and then, like, hit it off really well. And it's not too late yet, so maybe we decide to see a movie after. So we do, and then we talk about the movie for a while and everything we liked about it. And, you know, it's a beautiful night, so you think about what kind of future you have together, and you begin to ask her about these things, and she tells you that she hopes to marry one day, and you know you want to do that as well. And then you begin to imagine what kind of life you have together, doing errands, doing chores around the house, what kind of food you would make with her, the life you would build together. These dreams, they feel like magic, a reality that surely will never happen. So yeah, really talented actress, adds a lot to this movie. Very good performance, very stellar performance, very good performance that she has here. Good job. I like it a lot. Gal Gadot sucks though. We already talked about this. I feel like everyone's seen the clips.
Are you? Yes or no?
In short, this is probably the least eventful Disney live-action remake to come out, despite having loads of press surrounding it. I don't think there should be as much backlash to this movie in the way it's being portrayed. The backlash should just be because they decided to make the movie at all. It should have never happened. We need to stop supporting these live-action remakes. I gotta stop seeing them myself. I'm guilty of this too. I guess I'm using my AMC A-list whenever I see these movies, so I'm like technically not giving money, but I don't know. It's just still like, let's make a new film, you know? Like, even if you were to make something and it's like, maybe it's only $50 million instead of $250 million. I don't know. You guys know the Cord Jefferson speech at this point.
I understand that this is a risk-averse industry. I get it. But $200 million movies are also a risk, you know? And it doesn't always work out, but you take the risk anyway. And instead of making one $200 million movie, try making 20 $10 million movies. Or 50, right? 50 $4 million movies.
That's all for me. 4 out of 10. That's the rating this gets. Boring. Lame. Boo. Anyways, that's all I got. Did you see Snow White? What were your thoughts if you did? My name is Kristen Skoggs. Hope you're all doing okay out there. And until next time.
You can keep your Mox's ways, for it's only just a phase. Money, money, money makes the world